Paco Cabeza's filmmaking is how he builds the scenes. They're very well constructed and they're very well shot, and it's in a way it's a typical action clip, but it also has many moments where you're seeing details of things and then you go back into the action. So you have to decide many times where the music is and what the music is doing. It's also in this case, particularly, it's very measured, it's very tailored, it's very well constructed to each change in scene, each change in action, each change in tempo. I'm trying to really build the emotion and that we feel that we really want a solution, what's going to happen, and yeah, it's also choosing what kinds of sounds I want, what I want them to do. It's a lot of playing with sound design.
Yeah, we've discussed this in other shows about the intersection of sound design and music. I'd like to invite you to talk more about it. The thing that strikes me as an outsider on the scene is that it starts off with this very funereal, measured pace that you wouldn't normally expect for an action scene like this. Underneath it, there's a more kind of, Hollywood drum beat, Hollywood for want of a better word, which then evolves out of the scene in a very subtle but very controlled way. So I'd love to hear more about those different sounds that you found and how you found them.
Yes, also I'm making references to, very subtle references to flamenco music in a way, and to some of the music they sing in sad moments. So this is because of that. That's because why I'm choosing that pace, and also even there is an earlier part in the raid that I'm using as percussion. The heels of the flamenco singer, the flamenco dancers. I sampled the heels, and I used that to, like, I multiplied it by 20 or 40 tracks, and I made different rhythms, and that I used as percussion. So at first it sounds very wooden, and then it sounds more metallic. And in the metallic parts, I sampled different metallic things. So when I talk about the interaction of sound designs, that many times either I try to imitate sounds I think would be somewhere in the scene, that I could imagine that there could elements that would give me that kind of sound, or I take them directly from the recorded from the direct recorded recordings made live when they were shooting the scene, or sometimes even from the sound designer. So any of those three places, I try to choose sounds that I think could work as instruments, and I sample them and I use them in higher pitch, lower pitch, slower, faster, and I mix with other real instruments. So I really like, I think it works very well to confuse the listener. You don't really know if you're listening to a true instrument or to something that seems that it's coming out from the scene, and this also helps create this confusion, and for this kind of scenes it works very well.
That's extraordinary. So, are you in touch with the sound recorders during production, or is that after production that you get access to those tapes?
Usually after, but sometimes before. It depends on well, when I'm starting to compose and the necessity of the film. But I recently just did a musical, so you can imagine there were people dancing and singing, and so that I needed to like really talk with the sound recording person a year before. I mean, a very long time before, and we just finished. So yeah, but for this one, I did. I mean, I got the sound when they were editing, and and also then I also imagined what sounds could come out from those places, and there were like metallic tins, and there were like you can see different things that I'm trying to replicate in the score.
Well, it just sucks you in. I had no clue those types of sounds you're talking about, but the overall effect, hearing it for the audience, is you've created a world there that sucks us in.
I
Um,
think that's what's really
let
important because I mean, the thing that I don't want it to be noticed. I just want it to be felt. And that's exactly what you said. You didn't know that was there, so but it works, so, and that's why I think you can do it in a way that it's not like in your face. You're not hearing a metal can. You don't really know what you're hearing, but it feels that it really comes out from the film, and that's what I aspire to. I aspire to do music that was already in the film, and I just have to dig for it and find it.
That's beautiful. We're going to use that quote. That's a fantastic quote. It feels like you should do a sci-fi film, Zeltia. Have you ever done sci-fi?
I would love that. No, I haven't done sci-fi. I would love that.
I would love to hear what you do for sci-fi. I think it would be pretty amazing and different. Um, but let's move on to a genre you have done. Let's go to straight thriller, sort of Hitchcockian thriller, and we're going to play a clip from a film called The Silence of the Marsh now, which is available for everyone to watch on Netflix.
Valencia no es una ciudad marítima. Nunca lo ha sido. Es una urbe fluvial construida sobre un descomunal pantano. Drenado durante siglos para que la famosa huerta valenciana proliferase e hiciera posible la riqueza de la ciudad. Una riqueza de la que siempre disfrutaron los mismos. La ciudad empezó el siglo XXI enamorada de sí misma. La Fórmula 1, la Copa América de Vela, la ciudad de las artes y las ciencias. Ejercicios de unanismo de los que ahora nadie se hace responsable. Hoy, el pantano no se ve por ninguna parte, pero eso no significa que no exista. Sigue ahí, solo que un poco más abajo, como un cadáver mal enterrado, repleto de anguilas y de cañas. Unas y otras empezaron a llenar el palacio de la Generalitat. Primero llegaron las anguilas, bichos repugnantes, híbridos de pez y de serpiente que viven en el fango y se alimentan de la inmundicia. Los conoce bien, porque no hace mucho fue uno de ellos. Observaba cómo se daban la mano y se fundían en abrazos tan falsos como sus sonrisas. Escritores arribistas, ególatras autores de blogs, promotores culturales y editores. Todos estaban allí esperando a que aparecieran los verdaderos dueños del pantano. La única especie que no necesita abono, ni labranza, ni riego para su crecimiento. Las cañas, altas y duras, pero vacías por dentro. Ellas son las verdaderas señoras de la marisma, de la ciudad. Las cañas están en la política, en la patronal, en los sindicatos, en las universidades, en los deportes, en todas partes. Durante un tiempo él también quiso alzarse dorado, orgulloso. Pero no tardó en darse cuenta de que no era una anguila, ni tampoco era una caña. Era otro tipo de criatura. Una mucho más peligrosa.
I'm going to say this a lot, but that's so good. um,
Oh, well.
and it's purity of it. It's just another great actor, Pedro Alonso, familiar to people maybe from Money Heist. Just his voice, some beautiful camera work, and your music.
Yeah, Actually, the camera work gave me a lot of ideas. It's circular at some point, so I thought it should be something danceable, and so also something danceable is easier to give us this. We're getting dizzy, so this feeling of dizziness. I was trying to achieve that, and there's many things that actually when I saw it right now I'd forgotten, but it's very long, and it's also required a lot of construction because it goes through many phases, and sometimes to know what you want you need to know where you're heading to. So also I'm saying many things too with the music of who this character is, where we're at. It's a very political thriller too. It does talk a lot about how high society politics works in a certain part of Spain at that point. And so all this has to do with the kind of music I'm choosing. It's also close to zarzuela, which is a Spanish type of opera that's it's been very popular in Spain, mostly for the first half of the 20th century. And it's mostly related with conservatives and high class. And I was using elements of that, but I'm also using, we can see like the piano and some of the elements are more sophisticated. It's not very popular music. And also this, the main character, Pedro Alonso, is very sophisticated. He's also a big narcissist. It seems that might be my theme. Yeah. So, and there's also a lot of sound design also mixed, and it's harder when it's very melodical because you have to hide it more and you have to make it work with the instruments, and this is very orchestral. So yes, there is a lot of construction in that scene. I think it worked very well, but it did take, some time, yeah.
Without wanting to give too much away, this is a film where Pedro is an unreliable narrator, and this theme, which is the theme of the film, really captures that unsettling unease of his character. It's beautiful, it's lush, it's charming like him, but you just don't. You're not steady on your feet with it either, which goes to what you were saying about the circularity.
Yeah, and I was very lucky to be working with a director that loves big themes and loves melodies. I was so amazed when he told me, "No, I want a melody that I can remember," and that's like the last thing most people want nowadays. So that was very rewarding in that way. And he loved Bernard Herrmann's scores, and he loved that kind of scoring. So for me, it was like a gift to be able to do that.
Fantastic. Now we're going to, as with all great composers, we're now going to move to a completely different genre and style. And we're going to play a clip from a TV series you did called Atlanticas.
Yeah, very different.
Play this. And I'm going to leave it to you to explain this to everyone. Okay, let's play the clip.
Okay.
Si supiera cruzar el fuego podría estar en la tierra y en el mar al mismo tiempo.
Okay, Zaltia, over to you.
So, well, this is a documentary miniseries that has 3 episodes, and it's called Atlantic as Atlantic Women, and it's like 3 actresses that go to different parts of the Atlantic Ocean. And the 3rd episode is about Namibia. So this actress goes to Namibia, and mostly it's like conversations with the people she meets and how this changes the way she travels and how she feels about the world through traveling to this country. And I don't know why this is something. Sorry. And when she's there, she meets this tribe. They do these rituals where, I mean, they're trying to make them feel free or whatever. And in a way, we're trying to symbolize how it would be that at that point she achieved some kind of nirvana and was like completely in another state. And the images are so beautiful, and it's so poetic the way it's shot, that it was very evocative for me. And I also there is some, for example, the clapping that we see, they just clap a little bit at the beginning, and I sample the clapping and I play with the clapping to make some kind of rhythm. And then I started introducing all these guitar distortions, and that is all like sampled things, very weird stuff that I did with distorted guitars and effects. And I play a lot with the cut, what we're seeing, how it's edited. The editing is giving me the idea of what to do with the music. So it's kind of a video clip, this scene. So I could really like do it in a different way. I could just play it as it's really here. The music and the image are totally one thing. I don't think you can separate them.
I'd agree with that. It feels experimental, very experimental, and you have a background in experimental music, is that right? And experimental live performances.
I think I'm just experimental. I love to experiment with whatever. I don't know if I have a background, but I have a tendency. It's just something I love, yeah.
Well, this brings us to the world of documentary. Well, it touches on TV, but I wouldn't say this is a regular TV show. And I think right now you're just starting in your journey in sort of episodic serial TV. So we'll have to reconnect with you after you've done that, and we can talk about the schedules and
yes, it's another
all
world.
that fun stuff. But you are very, very seasoned in documentaries. And we now want to show a clip from a documentary that you did called Sad Hill Unearthed, which is about the excavation of the famous cemetery from the Sergio Leone film, The Good, the Bad and the Ugly. But it's beyond that. It's also sort of a meditation about art and the religious importance of art in people's lives. And in terms of a young composer, it's also a direct dialogue with Ennio Morricone, who is, without exaggeration, probably the most important figure in film composing today. It's like an artist being asked to paint a picture with about Michelangelo. How did you feel about that when you were presented with this project?
I was terrified. I didn't want to do it. I told the director, I don't think that this is for me. And he was also very patient, and he convinced me slowly, and he said, no, we're not going to ask you to do anything that has to do with Morricone. You can do whatever you want. If you wanted to have something, and I don't know, like I said, well, I can give it a try, and if I find my own way and my own music, and he did love what I did. Mostly, I think it was like the second try. So, and I felt I was being honest with myself with the story that we were telling, which is not the story of Morricone or The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. It's the story about these guys that are so passionate, and like they decided to unearth this cemetery from The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. But it's more about their passion and what moved them to do this, and what's moved so many people around the world to go visit this cemetery that is in the north of Spain, in Burgos. So I wanted to tell their story, but I also knew that, of course, Morricone's music was there, and also I like the image that came to me is like, if I went to this cemetery, it's like even 50 years after, that music that Morricone wrote is floating somewhere. So what if I pick up that perfume and from there start to construct something for this documentary, which is a different story? So that was the way I started.
And on that note, we're going to play Unearthed, which is rich with the perfume that you talk about.
Yes.
Que se pudieron traer 7, 8, 10 remolques de piedra. Supuso viajes de media hora, un tractor, de ida y otra media hora de vuelta. Se van llevando, nos las deja allí, pero una vez dejadas allí, pues hay que cogerlas, hay que intentar sacar un círculo más o menos perfecto, que no siempre queda del todo perfecto.
Es que hay piedras que no hay manera de casarlas.
Es una satisfacción cómo ha quedado y cómo va a quedar cuando pongamos todas las cruces.
Il cimitero, chiamiamolo così, cimitero di Sergio Leone che aveva costruito, per me è un onore che a questi bisogna dire grazie, a tutti questi che fanno 50 km 100 e vanno lì, è un onore proprio.
This a magic piece of film history is then preserved, and it's probably started a bit late, but it wasn't too late.
It's got to be human nature, you know, that you're drawn to something for a reason, or something has impacted you in your life. And the journey to that place is almost more important than getting there. Just the fact that you are on a mission to do something. It tells you about that person, that they're searching for something that they have.
Claro, habían rodado ya las escenas de la batalla.
So beautiful. It hits me twice because I'm a huge fan of that film, and it's just beautiful sentiments.
Yeah, I think it turned out really well, but it's one of those things you don't know how it happened. It was a bit miraculous, but I do feel also there's a lot of the camera movement. There's the voice. There's this some sound design that I did. There's the strings. There's the Spanish harmony flavor. So there's so many elements that make it, I think, work. But it's mostly what makes it you feel. And in this case, I think it makes you feel what probably these people that go in pilgrimage to see this place, what that film made them feel, and seeing it in live, what it makes them feel at that moment, and that joy for things that just make you happy, even if they don't make much sense. And that's what I liked about the film.
Yeah. Again, it's a beautiful hymn to something that has the same impact as a religion, but isn't religion, which I think right now is something that people find very, it's a powerful sentiment indeed. And I hate to do this to you, but I think we have to play Ecstasy of Gold now. We have to see
Okay.
where your perfumes come from, having and put that clip into context as well, because I think you did a great job in that piece of music. It's completely separate to Morricone. It's totally doing its own thing, but there is somehow, to coin your word again, there is that perfume. There's something mellifluous in the air that puts it in the same area as him, but is completely your own as well.
Such a great clip.
It's